like socialist ideologies and countries and companies, they all push this narrative that humans in various stages of life and various stages of need are parasitic. So we see this when it comes to like the abortion debate, which I won't get into more, but I've always rejected the notion that babies are parasites. Like they're just sucking the life out of the mother, giving nothing in return. They're just like an evil little blood-sucking monster. I hate that word parasite. And then it kind of, with the climate conversation, it becomes even greater that adults who are walking around, making their own choices, not sucking on a teat, but just using resources, they're also parasitic for just being alive.
Hey guys, I'm Maggie.
And I'm Olivia.
And welcome to this week's episode of Undoctrination. This week, we're discussing something that we've touched on before, climate craziness, but we kind of wanted to get more into you could say, conspiracies around climate lockdowns that aren't necessarily conspiracies. There is some truth to this idea that major cities are starting to put extreme restrictions on individuals' consumption for the sake of, fixing climate change or something. But this past week, this thing called C40 kept popping up in my news feed. And C40 is not a chemical substance like WD-40 or a car or something like that. C40 is actually a network of mayors in major cities across the globe, about 100 of them, who are dedicated to fighting climate change and lowering carbon emissions. And the reason this is blowing up is because a bunch of news organizations have caught wind of a 2019 research report that was published by C40 that had some quite alarming recommendations for the mayors in these cities. And as Olivia and I were researching behind the scenes, I found this Snopes fact check that was basically like, cities aren't actually agreeing to these policies. These are just recommendations based off research. But nonetheless, it's still quite concerning.
I was alarmed personally when I first saw it. And of course, we don't take Snopes' word at face value because they're known for stretching the truth themselves. So of course, we went into the actual report of the recommendations. And it's like, this is an analysis. These 100 mayors have not signed anything or committed to doing this. But this is basically, in an ideal world, this is how we would fight back against climate change and all this kind of stuff. And the stuff on there was still alarming. So I think
very alarming.
Yeah, we should definitely break it down a little bit.
And so just going to C40's About page, because when I first was researching this, I was on C40's website and it was very vague, used a lot of flowery language about saving the planet. If you go to C40's About page, they proclaim that they have about 100 mayors around the world. You can go in and look at which cities are part of this organization. And there's quite a few in the US, some that you would probably suspect are part of this, like Portland, San Francisco. I did see that DC is part of it. Atlanta is not.
How could
Atlanta is not. And going through their About page, there, again, is a lot of flowery language, especially about this 1.5 degrees Celsius climate action plan. And we will get more into that. But basically, all of this is about cities taking responsibility for their carbon emissions and their role in climate change and actively working to limit those quite significantly. I think they want to halve them. And also, on their About page, you see that cities don't pay to be a member. They don't really sign a pledge. They have to earn their membership through action. And I'm telling you guys, these are like the most major cities in the world. London, led by Sadiq Khan, he is the chair of C40 and has probably been the most egregious with his climate policies. And I think it's actually Sadiq Khan that is making C40 trend right now because they recently started putting in these ULEZ cameras and vans. Have you heard of this, Olivia?
I've seen these videos of people like knocking down these cameras and protesting against these cameras and stuff.
Yes. So basically, what Sadiq Khan did is he is chairing the C40 committee. He's obviously the most publicly devout member of C40. And so he starts taking some of these recommendations that we're going to talk about very seriously. One of which is that he's trying to enforce this ultra low emission zone within London. And he's begun expanding that outward in the city to cover more area. And this means that London, through the cars that people are driving on the road, they are trying to lower their emissions, but they're penalizing car owners whose cars don't immediately live up to these regulations. And not only are they penalizing them, they're penalizing them every day they're on the road. So every day, your car that is not up to snuff for these new ridiculous standards, you're getting charged 12 pounds and 50, whatever the cents is for pounds, every single day. And the way they're enforcing this is not through law enforcement. No. They've installed CCP-style cameras all over the city of London where they are tracking all of the cars on the road and will ding you if they spot your car on the road.
So many thoughts, but how much do you want to bet that that's not the only thing that they're using these new surveillance cameras for?
Yeah.
Because how does this even work? Clearly, there's like some facial recognition or car tracking technology to allocate who, like, you know, which fines go to which person. So that's already a step too far. I've seen these videos of guys literally climbing up poles and knocking them down, and they're heroes. I also like, I have such complicated feelings about the UK because on one level, I'm like, you guys completely did this to yourselves. Like, unequivocally, you did this to yourselves. So did we. So did we in the US. But they're just so much further down the road. I mean, we talked about this with Jess when she was on, about how the UK is like so much further in terms of authoritarianism, in terms of the removal of personal liberties. And it's so much more normalized there. They can't get a spork without a license over there. So it's just like, okay, this is just the new thing that they're gonna put up with, essentially. I mean, I'm happy that we've seen videos of people taking these down, but of course they're gonna be thrown in the slammer over some emissions. And of course we have emissions fines here in the US if you don't go to the DMV and like get your emissions thing checked, and you have to go to it's like every couple of years, right? You have to go to like the car place, but this is more extreme.
Yeah.
But we already deal with that level of it in the US. And I just like, because we don't care about it enough as a collective to protest against it, and everybody pays these fines when their emissions test is overdue, then who's to say this couldn't happen in the US?
Yeah, this is far more extreme. And the fact that you're getting charged every day you're on the road and they're doing it through these cameras and not really police, that's really creepy to me. I think in the US, you have the right to face your accuser in a court of law. And so these cameras are not, they like don't cut it. If you've ever been speed trapped by a camera, apparently that can't really stand up in a court of law.
Oh yeah, if you don't pay your fine, if you take that to court, 9 times out of 10, that police officer or whoever who is like reviewing the footage, they're not going to show up to court. They have a job to do. They're not going to show up to court to provide that evidence. So you can usually get out of a speed ticket or like a lot of traffic violations, honestly, if you take it to court. But again, the UK doesn't care about personal responsibility or liberty or human rights or really anything that matters. So I don't know. Do they deserve it? Probably not. But it's like you guys have let this slide for so long. I mean, Sadiq Khan is just such a
He's such a
He's
blatantly bad mayor.
He's just so blatantly bad. Like, you guys have people getting stabbed and knifed in the streets of London, and you guys put surveillance cameras to catch the
exactly.
emissions.
You're turning everyday people into criminals for frickin' emissions. I mean, come on. And those videos that you've been seeing, Olivia, apparently the destruction of these cameras that's happening so often that they believe that at most 1 in 4 of these cameras are getting destroyed or lost.
Okay, that's a good statistic. Let's keep it going.
That's a good sign.
Because you can't arrest them all. You can't arrest them all. But everybody should take out at least one camera.
But because people are rebelling, now Sadiq Khan is using taxpayer money to send vans onto the road to track down these cameras and see who's destroying them. So we're putting more cars on the road.
Big vans.
Big
they
vans.
Got sprinters out here now.
So it seems ridiculous, but think about it this way. If your mayor suddenly just passed these regulations and suddenly you, just an everyday person trying to get to work who can't afford a new car, becomes a criminal and you're being charged this much money every single day. I mean, think about that. That's horrifying. But that's the reality of these climate policies. A lot of them are targeting consumption habits. And that's what we want to get into. So not just in London is this happening, also in America. Andy Kessler wrote in the Wall Street Journal about, the big scare around climate lockdowns. And he says, emergency preparedness edicts abound. Gas stove bans, no plastic bottles for sale at San Francisco airport. A new proposal from New York City's Department of Environmental Protection would effectively ban coal and wood-fired pizza ovens. And then a city official reports—
That's like the backbone of New York economy. What what is going on?
The pizza. This is where it comes from, by the way.
Italian.
This is where this is all coming from. If you thought this was just like, a loosely random thing that was happening. It's a coordinated effort. And a lot of this stuff is affecting the little guy, which, we on the right have been saying this about climate regulations, is that it affects poor people the most.
Bruh, they're banning the mom and pop Nona's brick oven pizza joint before they ban millionaires and billionaires taking private jets every day. Yeah. I don't understand. I mean, I do understand why they do that, but it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but as we have seen these first rounds of regulations, and we've also seen the backlash to them, I think it is important to look deeper into what's going on at C40, which a lot of journalists have. And they found this report from 2019. And I'm going to link it in the chat for anyone who wants to follow along and see what we're seeing. It's called The Future of Urban Consumption in a 1.5 degrees Celsius World. C40 Cities headline report. Where have we heard 1.5 degrees Celsius before? In the requirements on their About page. They're all about this 1.5 degrees Celsius plan. So this was a research report commissioned by C40. And what we're going to do is go to section 6 on page 66. I don't think I need to make the 666 joke.
Maggie's Catholicism is coming out right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm memeing right now, but still, you could have done something to where it didn't seem this way. Anyways, if you go to section 6 in the table of contents, it's called "What Can Cities Do? Consumption Interventions by Category." And if you read any articles about this story, this is the specific section that they're referencing. Because Olivia, it is so egregious and unbelievable. I had to Google a fact check because I was like, there's no way. There's no way. So if you go to page 66 and want to read along with us, one moment. This whole section is targeting consumption habits, which is exactly what these cities around the world have been doing. They're mainly focused on consumption habits because we, the dumb masses, are just going to follow the law and do what they say. Unless you're a vigilante in London who enjoys destroying cameras.
Good for them.
Yes. So in this section, they say they have 2 target levels. One is called the progressive target level, which is based on research that identifies the threshold of resource efficiency and behavioral change potential. And the second is a more ambitious target level, which is based on a future vision of resource efficient production and extensive changes in consumer choices. Let's get into it.
Seems like that's going to have some effect on my choices.
Yes.
But I'm not sure.
So there's a few different categories that they're targeting. One is buildings and infrastructure, so housing. One is food, private transportation, clothing and textiles, electronics and household appliances, and then aviation. And some of these are less scary than others. The scariest one, in my opinion, would probably be food. Because if you look at what they're calling for, the progressive target, right, which
they want
is
us to eat the bugs,
bad,
right? They want us to live in a pod and eat the bugs.
No, they do. Except bugs are meat. That's an animal-based product, Olivia. So still
we can't
some
even
carbon
eat
emissions
bugs?
happening. So apparently, food accounts for 13% of total consumption-based emissions in C40 cities. And we can't have consumption-based emissions. That's not acceptable. And meat or animal-based foods account for 75% of that. So what they want to do, they're not telling cities they have to do this, just that this is
a strong
the stretch
suggestion.
goal to keep in mind for down the road if we're really trying to solve climate change.
If you guys want to live, you're gonna do this. You're gonna eat the bugs.
Yes.
That's what they're saying.
They want to limit meat and dairy consumption down to a much less drastic level. And then their ambitious target, so like pie in the sky, if we see consumer choices change, they want to eliminate it altogether. So they do, in fact, think that being vegan,
no bugs even.
No
not
bugs. That's
even
what
bugs.
I'm saying, Olivia. You can't eat bugs either because that is an animal-based food. So
the next slide is going to be
huge.
like, it actually will help if you reduce emissions by eating somebody else. If you turn to cannibalism and reduce the population that way, and then you get your protein intake up, and everyone's happy. It reduces emissions.
These socialist states that also have euthanasia being legalized, like,
yo, this is coming soon to Canada.
They also believe that humans are just bad for the planet, and that's kind of the point I want to make, is that they just think we need to either change completely or stop existing for the planet to be happy, which is not the case. It's not the case at all. It's weird that these
like socialist ideologies and countries and companies, they all push this narrative that humans in various stages of life and various stages of need are parasitic. So we see this when it comes to like the abortion debate, which I won't get into more, but I've always rejected the notion that babies are parasites. Like they're just sucking the life out of the mother, giving nothing in return. They're just like an evil little blood-sucking monster. I hate that word, parasite. And then it kind of, with the climate conversation, it becomes even greater that adults who are walking around, making their own choices, not sucking on a teat, but just using resources, they're also parasitic for just being alive.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's very
I mean, it is
anti-human.
man against nature, right? We're always going to live in this toxic battle against each other, according to these people. Another thing they want to target is buildings and infrastructure. While we're having a significant housing crisis, they want to limit the types of materials we can use. So mainly that's going to be steel and cement, which is used to make a lot of buildings
houses that don't
days.
blow over.
Yeah, and they want to significantly increase the amount of timber being used. Not sure why, but this would increase the problem of housing costs, obviously. Other ones, they want to be able to limit your purchasing of clothing items to the ambitious target is 3 new clothing items a year.
I can't.
The
This is
girls
anti-woman.
will
This is
not
anti-woman.
stand for this. This is misogyny.
sexist.
Okay. This is misogyny. And all of those girls that are out there with the Sunrise Movement protesting on college campuses who are like rah-rah environment, they will not stand.
Girlies, wake up.
You will lose all of their support.
Because that's not just like 3 shirts, 3 pants. That's 3 clothing items. That's 3 anything you wear.
Yes, that's underwear included.
Oh, that just made it so much. That realization just made it so much worse.
Right? I mean, you're not getting new anything. And I'm
Who's wearing the same underwear for years?
Okay, I
Me
love
too.
thrifting, but sometimes you need new items.
You need new socks. You need new underwear. You need new shirts when your shirt tears. Like, I'm losing my mind. This is sexism. Even for men, that's bad. But some men can handle the only 3 clothing items a year. But most, I don't.
I think they could, because a lot of men. I don't mean to be misandrist or whatever, but a lot of men will wear things while there are holes in them until they're just falling apart.
I admire that about a lot of men, though. A lot of men won't wear anything new unless their wife buys it for them. But
I appreciate the thriftiness, and apparently so does C40. They're saying thank you for your service, man. For private transportation, this probably comes at no shock to you. They want to severely limit people's ability to own cars. The progressive target, what they think is achievable, would be 190 vehicles per 1,000 people.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So this is only achievable in metropolitan areas and in larger cities. And you may be asking, well, how do they plan to achieve this across a vast country like the United States? And then we talk about this new thing I've been seeing all over Twitter is these 15-minute cities that they want to sprout
about
up
that. What is
everywhere. I think it's kind of part of a conspiracy, but it's also kind of real. And I've seen it in connection. The conspiracy comes in when I've seen it in connection to like the Maui fires and how billionaires like Bill Gates and Oprah have basically bought up a lot of the places that have been affected by this fire. And they're like, oh, we want to build like these new smart cities, these new high-tech 15-minute cities where you never have to leave again. Like it's basically like that. But in reality, these things are sprouting up all across the country. And a lot of people are like, well, this is great for convenience. And I'm a convenience gal. I like living in a little suburbia outside of a major city, but I would never retire here. I would never want to live here my whole life because I value my independence too much. But I think it becomes sinister when you're like, well, you guys don't need anything because we're giving all this convenience to you, so we're just going to take away your freedom. Because there's nothing really inherently wrong with living in a walkable city, for instance. That's really nice and convenient. But if I want to have a car, I should be able to have a car, and just pay for my car. And the other scary thing, in terms of it happening in like London and other places in Europe, have you guys seen the size of European cars already? They're like that big.
They're teeny.
So what else are you going to take away from them? They're going to have nothing left because they're talking about, American cars, American trucks are so big and they're killers and they're gas guzzlers. American trucks are like twice the size of European cars and trucks, but how are you going to limit them even more? Because their cars are like that big.
Yeah, I mean, so again, these are not policy proposals that cities have signed on to. These are like, this is the ideal world. If you
live in London, take it seriously because Sadiq Khan is on that. He's about that.
Yeah. And the ambitious target for cars is that 0 people own them.
Oh, okay. Well, that's reasonable.
I have to say, if you want to take away my ability to have a car in Atlanta, Georgia, which that's not happening, at least not right now,
just take the MARTA and get stabbed, Maggie. Just take the MARTA.
Is a place.
What's funny? Every time I've come to Atlanta, I've taken the MARTA, and I don't mind it. I don't know. I'm a public transportation user. This is where I just want to make this disclaimer because I like convenience, and on a good public transportation system, I'm not saying MARTA is the best or like it's like super safe or anything, but growing up using the DC Metro like all the time, I guess I'm just very used to it. So that's not really an issue for me. It's when you want to take away my freedom. It's when you want to take away my freedom. I want to have a choice. That's so much to ask for. Apparently it is.
Yeah. As a Southern girly who I grew up in cities, but not big cities. And in the South, we don't have good public transportation.
Yeah.
Every time I go to a city that does have it, I love it for the convenience, but I'm always deathly afraid of like the antisocial people who like wander onto the subway cars and you're like, you look like you're on drugs right now.
Dude, people in major cities, especially in New York, because every time I go to New York, the last time I went to New York, I took the subway, but the first like several times I went to New York, I actively avoided it because even as a subway taker, you just have to be a different breed to like really get used to the New York City subway system.
It's
but the
bad.
last one or two times I went, I did take it. And the way that people have absolutely zero reaction to people coming on the train in various states of dress. It could be a butt-naked person playing a trombone and begging for money. People would barely glance up. And I'm just like, is anybody else seeing this? Is anybody else seeing this? Because people will come on and put on like a whole concert. People will come on and do breakdancing. People will come on and beg for money. People will come on and threaten you. And all you have to do is just not even make eye contact. And they'll usually leave you alone. If you're lucky, you may get pushed onto the platform and die because that's happened before in New York. People will randomly get pushed onto the platform.
Okay, that was my biggest fear. I kept having this intrusive thought.
You always got to stand. Every time I'm on the metro platform, stand back. Don't be standing up at the line.
Yeah, when I was in New York City for a few days, a few weeks ago, every time I went down to the subway platform, I was like back against the wall. Yeah. Like I am not getting pushed into these tracks. I'm terrified. And maybe the internet has poisoned my brain and I've seen too many of these videos of people getting pushed or something bad happening in the subway. But I will tell you, nearly every train I got on in New York City had at least one antisocial person who was acting crazy. And like, people were doing drugs actively on the train. That blew my mind. Like, really? You're going to smoke a blunt? And I know that's not that bad to some people.
When you said drugs, I thought you meant like crack.
I'm sure that was happening too. But like, I don't like weed, so I don't want to get secondhand smoke. I know I'm a loser, okay? But I just think it's not that great. Anyways, public transportation rant
have you taken public transport in another country? Because you're a frequent traveler now. Okay, where have you taken it?
I've taken it in Paris and I've taken it in Buenos Aires in Argentina.
How were those?
They weren't bad. I would just say it's like kind of dirty.
I've heard Paris is really dirty.
Yeah, it's a little dirty and it smells like pee. So
okay, so like New York.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's not terrible.
Buenos Aires the same or?
Yeah, I would say it's roughly the same, except Argentina is so poor, but it still has like the hustle mentality. So there's people selling you stuff on every train, which isn't terrible, but they're selling you like hair bands or, stuff like that, gloves, whatever they can get their hands on.
At least it's not drugs.
Yeah, very true. They don't really, from what I remember, they don't have a huge drug problem. The other transportation related thing, aviation, airlines. How many flights have you taken in the past year, Olivia?
1 million. I don't know.
Not gonna cut it.
I was looking at like my Apple wallet or like my iPhone wallet the other day, and it shows like a lot of my expired boarding passes. And since 2020, I stopped counting when it got to 100, but I've taken over 100 flights in the last 3 years.
Olivia, you are part of the problem.
I am, but it's like, it's for work and stuff. Like most of this is not for leisure. And that also counts layovers if that helps. But still.
No, I totally understand. And a lot of us have to travel for work. They are looking to seriously limit people's ability to fly. And a while ago, maybe I wasn't taking any flights, so this wouldn't have been that dramatic. But like, I'm flying a lot now.
Mm.
They want to limit the progressive target is one short haul return flight every 2 years per person. And then the ambitious target is one short haul return flight every 3 years per person. I have no idea how that would be achievable. I don't get it.
People who have no life, people who don't like work like long distance or in a long distance relationship or have family across the country or don't go on vacation or everything is in your 15-minute city. If your family isn't located within your walkable city, they will get you a new family. Okay? They will get you a new relationship. They'll get you a new job. It's probably not going to be the same, but you won't have to fly, so it'll be good.
So it'll be okay because you aren't hurting the environment.
It'll be okay.
And then they have a section talking about electronics and household appliances. It's not that bad, but I will say, have you heard about the new iPhone and the port on the new iPhone?
No. I mean, I know there's a new iPhone out, but I don't know what.
So the charging port on the new iPhone is different. It's a USB-C, I believe. And the reason they're doing that is not to make a bunch of money on chargers, which
they already
that would be a good enough reason.
Yeah.
But it's to protect themselves against this new EU regulation about all electronics like this needing to have this certain type of port for chargers. And I do think it's related back to this. Like the person they interviewed from the EU said that it's for climate reasons. Like we don't want to have all of these chargers floating around.
So it has to be a universal charger essentially to cut down on the amount for chargers because the USB-C is what you use with like a MacBook and like other devices. Okay. I mean,
I will say this.
Are chargers a new like plastic soda ring that are like ending up in the ocean and killing sea turtles? Is that what that is?
I guess. But I will say the reason I mentioned that is because some of these measures, I'm sure, are informing these decisions. So while I disagree with a lot of these articles that are like, oh, this like 2030 agenda, like we're going to go into climate lockdowns, I kind of disagree with those. Not because I don't think the government is capable of doing that. It's that I believe we won't put up with it. And we're already seeing resistance against these like small initial measures. So I'm not sure that governments around the world will be capable of doing
At
this.
least not Americans. Because, other people in other countries, I'm starting to lose the faith as their countries get more and more authoritarian. I am pleasantly surprised that some Brits, our cousins across the ocean, have decided to take matters into their own hands a little bit and destroy some of these cameras. But here, I mean, I don't even know how they would go about enforcing a lot of this stuff here. I mean, they've been offering like gun buybacks. You can make hundreds of dollars giving away your guns.
In the US?
Oh yeah, that's been happening in cities like not for climate reasons, but this happened in cities like every time there's a mass shooting. It's happened in Texas. It happened in like Maine or New Hampshire or something. They're like, oh, we'll buy back your guns. We'll buy back all your assault rifles. No questions asked. We'll give you whatever. And people don't even do that. And remember, there was a thing where somebody had just. I have to find the article again. It was really funny. But somebody had just 3D printed guns for the gun buyback and just like made a bunch of money. So people here find ways around that.
Honestly, work.
People slay.
Honestly,
I love entrepreneur.
Yeah, we love a scammer. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Don't scam, but
scam the government.
I don't know if we can advocate for that. But
Okay. Don't scam the government.
Don't be a scammer.
Wink, wink.
So about the climate lockdowns, I was curious because, again, I keep seeing people talking about this stuff. I was curious what my audience on Twitter thought about climate lockdowns, like really whether they think that's a thing that's actually going to happen to us in the future, and something that we should be genuinely concerned about, or if it's like, no, that's not going to happen. This is much ado about nothing. 66.5% say yes, they believe that climate lockdowns are in our future.
I agree. I mean, I think they're going to attempt. I
Yeah.
think they're going to attempt. I mean, they saw how easily a lot of people bowed to the COVID lockdowns. And this is also going to be posed as a very dire situation. I mean, for years I've been saying it's not only is climate change going to kill us all if we don't do anything, but like it's already too late. Like, haven't you seen that? It's like already too late to do anything. And there are people who are already advocating for not having children because they're going to grow up in like a hellscape because we didn't eat the bugs enough or whatever they want us to do. So I think that they're gonna do some fear mongering stuff. They're gonna be like, if you ever want to have kids, you're gonna do this, or else everybody's gonna burn and die. And people will do it, but in America and mass, I don't know.
Yeah.
We have to stand up to it. We have to actively fight it, though. It's not just gonna happen and go away.
Yeah, a few concerns I have are like, what are the real motivations behind doing this? Like, do these politicians and these mayors genuinely believe that our earth is going to like burn to us?
No, I mean, look at John Kerry. That's the Biden administration's climate czar. His family's like fleets of private jets. He'd be flying around on those. He flew on the private jet to like the UN climate summit or whatever that thing was. And now he's been spotted around DC a couple times. Him and Pete Buttigieg do this weird thing where they get out of their car, their private car, and like get on a bike or like a bird scooter for a photo op, and like get back in the car. They've both been spotted doing that.
What?
Around here.
That is so weird.
I swear.
That is so weird. Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
it's predictable though. I mean, all these politicians and climate people are actors.
Yeah.
And Greta Thunberg is going to rule the new. She's going to rule the new world.
Honestly,
I think she gets a lot of hate, and I think it's like kind of undeserved because she's like, I mean, she's not a kid anymore. She's not a kid anymore, but at the time she was, and she was being used, I think, as a puppet. And people were making like horrible, like sexualized jokes about her, talking about her appearance, making fun of her, mental disability and things like that. Really hate that kind of stuff. But you criticize our ideology, that's fine. But yeah, I just want to put that out there because I don't like the personal attacks on young women.
I don't either. I think it's more concerning that all of these big NGOs like uplifted a 16-year-old.
They're like,
girl?
oh, she's skipping school, but for our cause, great.
Like,
let's make her president of the world. Yeah, so
it was really
that's
interesting. Yeah,
weird.
And it was definitely an attempt to tug on people's heartstrings by putting up a young girl there who is like, "How dare you not care about my future?
How dare you? How dare you?"
But like, is she really to blame for being used as a puppet when she was a teenager? I don't know. Like, I know she's still doing climate stuff, but she seems to be a lot more low-key and under the radar.
Because she grew up and, you can't really use a 20-year-old. I think she was like 20 or something now. You can't really use a 20-year-old like you could use a 16-year-old. And that's just the fact of the matter.
Yeah. Some other things we wanted to talk about related to this. Olivia, was it you that brought this up, the Apple commercial?
Oh, God. Okay, so did y'all see the new Apple commercial that came out about reducing carbon emissions? It featured Tim Cook, famous Tim Apple, as Donald Trump would say. And he's like sitting in a boardroom and all his little interns. There's one white guy in the whole advertisement, by the way, and it's Tim Cook. Everyone else is racially ambiguous and kind of just looks very like perfectly diverse.
Oh yes, it is quite the cast. It really is.
It literally looks like it looks like the cast of Euphoria in there. It's like there's literally one person of every single race, including different like combinations of different races. It's so good. Yeah, give him the Oscar right now. But he's sitting in a boardroom. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, Mother Nature's coming! How do we get these carbon emissions down?" And then Octavia Spencer busts in the door, and she's like, "I'm Mother Nature, y'all." And it's just like so cringe and so lame and so bad. Dude, and it's just.
It's really
I don't use
funny.
the term woke really, but it's woke. Okay.
It's really, really woke. It's really woke. Okay. I was thinking about it from the perspective of a progressive watching the commercial. And if you think about it from that perspective, you're like,
You're like,
This is the
whoa,
best
Indian
commercial I've
woman,
ever
black
seen.
woman, Jewish woman, Hispanic man, gay man, Muslim woman. That check all my boxes. I love
Yeah.
that.
And Octavia Spencer's character is like talking down to them the entire time. Like, what
How
did you
dare
actually
you?
do? Oh, so you have a plan? What is it for 2050 when you're all gone and somebody else is left to like, pick up the slack for you? So I felt like the audience that it was targeted towards would love that.
Yeah. No, because you know who white liberals love? They love sassy black women who they can use to further their agenda. So they're like, let's make Mother Nature this like sassy black woman who's telling everybody they're going to die if they don't listen to her. Yes, queen. Yes,
honestly,
queen. Period. Slay. Yes, hunty girl boss. Period. That's what they wanted to do. That's my opinion.
But I will say, I was like, dang, I'm kind of impressed by like all of those stuff Apple's been doing to make their company more climate friendly. And so
good for them, but nobody's buying an iPhone because it's climate friendly.
So I'm like, what force is behind this where
Mother Nature.
Apple is like, okay, we're going to take on all of these prohibitive costs to make our company, what is it, carbon neutral? Is that what they were claiming?
I guess.
I don't know. I will say, I think it's better if private companies do this kind of stuff than governments enforcing it. Like, I do think that's a positive sign.
It's just the ad that I had. I'm just a hater. Honestly, a hater.
The ad
it's
was
just
super cringe. But like we were talking about in the previous episode that we did on climate craziness, it's this like weird Orwellian stuff that is actually scary. Less so is it the, universities opening programs with like environmental engineering and, companies trying to figure out how to be more environmentally friendly and sustainable and save money that way. Like the second option I think is actually not bad, although Apple's commercial was pretty cringe. But it's this other stuff. It's the C40 cities. It's the over the top, top-down government mandates where they're clearly trying to control human behavior and engineer society to outcomes that they want. Not only is it creepy, it's just not going to work, And ultimately, we suffer the costs, right?
Right. And I don't think that the government actually cares about which particular private companies and corporations are actively doing work unless they're woke like Tim Apple, because look at what Elon Musk's company has been. You can say whatever you want about Elon Musk. I have my criticisms of Musk, of Mr. X, but he has an electric car company. Do you ever see him get any praise from these carbon neutral people, from Greta Thunberg or any of these John Kerry? They don't talk about Elon Musk. He's putting like people in space and putting rovers on Mars and Jupiter and the sun and everything. And he's just taking one for science. And it's just kind of like, are we not going to acknowledge the good that he's at least attempting to do through science?
No, because he's not woke enough, going through the pathways that they want. And Elon Musk is right-wing coded, so they don't like him.
Not even right-wing. He's just kind of right-wing coded. Like, dude has 10 different kids by 18 different baby mamas. Not sure how that's possible. And like, all of them are trans and whatever. I'm like, the dude's not even a Republican. Dude's not a conservative. He's just right-wing coded and they hate him for it.
So I asked Dan Sanchez, who always sends me these great quotes from thinkers who can say things better than I can. And I was like, hey, do you know anyone who's written about social engineering? Because this is social engineering, what they're trying to do. They're trying to engineer a society that fits their ideal without really taking into account human beings. And Mises, Ludwig von Mises, has actually written quite a bit about this. So here's one. It is customary nowadays to speak of social engineering. Like planning, this term is a synonym for dictatorship and totalitarian tyranny. The idea is to treat human beings in the same way in which the engineer treats the stuff out of which he builds roads, bridges, and machines. The social engineer's will is to be substituted for the will of the various people he plans to use for the construction of his utopia. Mankind is to be divided into two classes: the almighty dictator on the one hand, and the underlings, who are to be reduced to the status of mere pawns in his plans and cogs in his machinery on the other. If this were feasible, then of course the social engineer would not have to bother about understanding other people's actions. He would be free to deal with them as technology deals with lumber and iron. So it really is like a lot of these big plans to socially engineer society, they do inevitably end up treating people like cogs in a machine, and you do remove a person's will from them when you make these decisions on their behalf. And in that case, we're just not free anymore.
Yeah. If the idea is good enough on its merit, then you shouldn't have to force people to do anything in relation to it. You shouldn't have to threaten people, fine people, force people. And obviously that could be said for so many things. And that kind of almost encompasses libertarian ideology as a whole, is that it's like about a consent to be governed, that we didn't consent to this. And, if building roads, if funding the Department of Education, if funding jails and the military industrial complex is so good, you wouldn't have to threaten people with jail time if they don't pay to fund it. So it's kind of a similar concept here. It's the exact same concept here. If we're actually inevitably doomed if we don't do this, convince people. Convince people. You shouldn't have to just be like, okay, we're actually giving you paper straws. Paper straws was like the start for me. I think we talked about this, but it's like, I will literally club a baby seal if you give me a paper straw. Sorry, I don't care. You already taken away my freedom and choice, so I will take away that baby seal. No, just kidding. But I'm sorry. You're gonna have to convince me.
Weird sensory issue with paper straws as well.
As soon as you try to drink out of it, it's mush.
It is.
And I think there was something linking them to like cancer or something. And I was like, good. Finally, we can get rid of these.
Yeah. I mean, social pressure has already convinced countless people to change up their daily habits. And like some of these are for the better. Like every woman I know carries around a gigantic water bottle. And it's massive. It doesn't even fit in like the cup holders in their car.
And it's because of trends. It's not because of John Kerry. It's not because of Greta Thunberg. No. It's because they can put cute stickers on it and bang people over the head with their giant hydro flask. Dude, those things are weapons. Those are like 20 pounds. Like why?
They really are.
How are people
these tiny
those
girls carrying around these 20-pound?
It's like the tiniest Pilates girl that carries this 50-pound
and she has
sack.
like 25 of them.
And they're all $100 too,
I know.
Guys.
Where's she getting the money for
hydro
the hydro
flasks
flasks?
are expensive.
But people will pay for these things if they think that it's actually doing something and that they're actually helping.
Yeah.
I do hope that people continue to rebel against these small encroachments of government. To me, these are like testing grounds. Like, can we get away with this? Can we keep going? Can we do more and more and more and more and more? And that's generally how the government has been able to slowly but surely take over so many aspects of our daily life. I made this point earlier on Twitter, and it's going super, like it's doing well on Twitter. That we call things late stage capitalism when really it's like late stage government intervention.
That's my biggest pet peeve.
Yeah, but like we don't realize and put two and two together like, oh, this regulation for this reason that seemed good is actually causing this bad thing to happen. The biggest one I can point to with these suggestions from C40 is the housing material regulations. Like, what do you mean you want to limit the types of housing material we can use to build buildings? Like currently, America is in a housing crisis, and that's happening across the world. Like every city I've been to this year, it's been the same exact story. Like people are getting priced out of these places because we're not building housing fast enough. And one last point that I want to make, and then I'll hand it off to you, Olivia, is that, I disagree that climate lockdowns are coming. I don't think that's the case. But I would say always be weary that could happen. Just because we saw it with COVID. Like nobody thought that people would willingly just lock themselves inside their homes for months on end. And yet, alas, people did it. And they cheered on the government for making these policies and shamed government officials who were like, no, we want to give you freedom to decide what you want to do, right? So I would say it's like one of those things where you should at least be on guard, right? Not
Absolutely.
that you should live in fear that the climate commissars are going to come and, lock you in your home and force feed you insects. But,
insects
at
are
least
meat.
be on guard for the insects.
At least be on guard for the insects. You know what's crazy? I feel like I've noticed like way more bugs outside lately, and I'm like, what's going on? I don't know. Maybe it's part of the broader conspiracy. Maybe John
More
Kerry did
bugs?
that. Yeah.
Really?
Like, I just see like I get like so many more bug bites lately. I don't know.
Very interesting. I've seen this conspiracy theory going around that we've killed all the bugs because do you remember driving with your parents as a kid on a road trip and it was just like flies all over the window shield and like you got to your destination and you would have to stop at the gas station and get that little squeegee thing and like squeegee off the dead bugs from your windshield? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, but I feel like that still happens. I don't know.
That doesn't happen to me. And apparently a lot of other people remember this being a thing when they were kids.
I think people
and now,
are doing less cross-country road trips because you're not. That's not happening in this city. That's happening, and that's happening on your family trip to grandma's house in upstate New York or whatever. That's not happening in Atlanta or DC.
I don't know. I think it has to do with the amount of cars on the road, actually. I think
That's
some
possible.
magazine did an investigation of why there's less bugs.
Oh, well then I
But,
believe it. And
yeah.
also birds aren't real. So bugs are dying and birds aren't real. What's next? What's next to go? Us.
Yeah, so true, Olivia. So true.
Thank you.
Do you have any final thoughts to leave everyone?
Let me not try to do a Bane impression. I'm trying to think of my final thoughts. Final thoughts, stop compromising people. That can mean anything from refusing to use a paper straw in an establishment when offered to refusing to just put up with surveillance and just driving under cameras all the time. So shout out to the Brits who are doing that. If you're actually for that, you're insane. You're insane. And when the gulags come around, you're going to be the first I throw into it. Those are my final thoughts.
Olivia.
Okay. I'm against gulags for anybody. Freedom of speech, freedom of thought.
Yes.
But if you're a traitor, then I'm just not going to feel bad for you when you do get thrown into the gulags.
Okay. I think traitors
I like how I'm the
deserve
angel and
sympathy.
you're the devil. Or no, reverse. I'm the devil and you're the angel, like on somebody's shoulder. Like the listener's shoulder. I'm the one whispering
Oh my
like
gosh.
evil sweet nothings into their ear.
Doing the Bane impression.
Yeah.
I saw that you posted that on Twitter and it cracked me up. So
It's
thank
it
you
didn't
for
do
that.
the clip didn't do well because I feel like you had to get the context of what we were talking about. Because the Bane impression made sense. Okay.
It did make sense.
Thank you.
Last time.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure
Just
you could
not-
make it make sense this time. But either way,
Probably.
where can we go see that clip from you, Olivia? Where can we follow
Oh
you on
yeah.
social media?
Okay. So I'm on Twitter at Rondeau Olivia and on Instagram at Rondeau.Olivia. I post way more on Twitter though, so go follow me there.
And you can find me on Twitter at Liberty Anders. That is the only place you can find me.
Maggie values her privacy a lot, so let's just all respect that, guys. But if you want her phone number, privately, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, if you
privately reach out to me, I will sell it to you.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Olivia. And thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and leave us a comment. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.